What is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Is iPhone 12 Pro Max worth it here in 2022? That is the aim of today's video. You could see I do have the silver edition model right here. Now, talking about the price really quickly here, I will say that the iPhone 12 Pro Max is really holding its resale value very well. I'm not seeing this phone drop ridiculously. I mean, you could find some under, 800 maybe if you look really hard, but they're up there. They're still near 1,000, and that's the first flaw I would say overall of this phone, is that you can't get it really low. So it's kind of a bad deal when you think about, you can get a brand new 13 Pro for slightly more, and then you have the 120 hertz. But if you want the larger panel and you don't want to pay for the iPhone 13 Pro Max, this might be a compelling option for you. Beginning by talking about the build and the design, they did square off the edges here, but this one is the first model they went back to that, so I do feel like the iPhone 13 Pro Max does look a little bit better with its larger camera setup. It has its newer notch. This kind of reminds me of the iPhone 5, and then the 5S was slightly more refined. That's kind of what's going on here. However, the good thing about this one is that even though it has that wider notch up at the top, it does have a lighter build. So 228 grams down from 240. It's a little bit more manageable because of that, but it's still a large phone. It does have a 6.7-inch panel here, but I gotta say, the body and the build, in terms of the modern look, it just feels identical, to the current 13 model. So if you're looking for the design, there's no question there. It's definitely worth it there. The display in 2022, it's the same thing besides not having 120 hertz. It's still the Super Retina XDR OLED, and while it doesn't hit the 1000 nits and it's not the ProMotion, it does have a really good brightness, of like a 800 nits. So it's pretty bright here. It can hit 1200 peak. So still a very bright display and still a very large and gorgeous panel. However, this 60 hertz is starting to look a little bit slow compared to a lot of the competition. So once you see the 120 hertz on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you will probably be disappointed with this. The overall panel itself, it's pretty wide at 19:9 aspect ratio. So it's got a good width to it. I think reading's pretty enjoyable. When you are viewing photos, of course, you do have the notch still peeking into the content up there a little bit. On the whole, though, a very large, enjoyable media experience, and it's pretty easy to avoid it or not really even pay attention to it, to kind of ignore it while using the phone. So display is pretty much a thumbs up still for me. Is it worth buying when it comes to its software? And the answer is, of course. I mean, we don't really got to talk even much about this. It's still iOS 15.2.1. We are going to have the upgraded version because there's a Safari vulnerability that's coming this week, more than likely. But I mean, you are getting essentially the same experience that you're used to seeing on pretty much any other iPhone. So that's going to be no change there. You can even add your widgets on here, so no big deal on here. So definitely I'd say that it's worth it for the software. Plus you have many years left of support, and then when Apple does launch some new iOS features, maybe they'll bring some Mac specific features. This phone might be able to get that as well. The next thing is the storage with this device. You have the ability to get this with up to 512 gigs. That will cost you quite a bit, but they did go to the 1 terabyte on the 13 Pro Max. So if you do want more storage, I'd steer clear of this, but 512 gigs is a pretty healthy amount of storage. Did the performance really get any better? Because I'm having troubles, deciding if it really did. Because when I'm going on these phones, I do see a different number in Geekbench. I do see different benchmark results. But when I am just kind of flying through the OS and just using stuff, everything just feels snappy still. And it doesn't really matter if I'm on this phone or I'm on the 13 Pro Max. It just feels very good. So if I go into consumer electronics, as you'll see right here, just super smooth. There's just no lag or whatever. So I gotta say, it's kind of hard to justify buying newer iPhones these days just for the chipset alone. That's why I think the ProMotion was a big deal for, say, the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max, because it was really more felt. That brings me on to the battery life. The battery life was actually pretty superb on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but it got even better on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which was insane, mostly because the ProMotion has an adaptive refresh rate. If you put it in dark mode, I found myself getting even better battery life. And then if you use the low power mode, it was just easily going 1.5 days for me, whereas the Pro Max can stretch about 2. So it's a good couple hours better, maybe 3 hours better on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. But this one was the best of the 12 series. The 12 and 12 Pro were not very impressive for me with the battery life. So if you're looking for a pretty good battery capacity, the 12 Pro Max should still go ahead and please you on that respect. Now, when we're talking about the cameras, we do have a triple setup. We have an ultra wide 12 megapixel, we have a regular wide 12 megapixel and a telephoto, plus we have LiDAR scanning on here for other things like augmented reality and stuff like that. So it is a pretty good setup right here on the whole. So if we take a picture, very good results. I actually wasn't even craving more cameras when I got the 13 Pro Max. It was just like, it's like a cherry on top. They're just adding and adding, but I was already supremely happy with the iPhone 13 or 12 Pro Max here. I was going to say 13 Pro Max because they feel the same, but I was already supremely happy. It had amazing video quality. You can go 4K 60 on each lens on the back. And then they brought cinematic mode, which was really a pro-like feature that I feel like a lot of people don't really use, but it's still awesome to have. Then you have the same 12 megapixel 4K 60 on here. So when you are taking front-facing video on this and then on the rear, it matches up amazingly well. I was always pleased with the results of this camera. It was really something that I was like, I'm not really needing anything else when it comes to a phone camera at this point. And so that means if you go ahead and find this on a deal, you're still getting amazing setup. And I mean, when I say amazing, I mean, you don't really got to even miss out on anything with the 13. Yes, it's a little bit better in some respects, but come on, it's still very, very high quality here for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So worth buying in terms of camera? Absolutely. Right now, this is still worth buying in camera. Now, when it comes to audio, in addition to that, with a larger body, more battery, and more space, pretty good overall quality with the audio. The iPhone 13 mini is likely. It does come out of two separate speakers, but it seems like Apple's just making it a little bit more bassy, a little bit louder every year on these Max phones. Not like drastically so, but if you did use a decibel meter like this right here, and you did a side-by-side comparison, I got stuff falling into the video. If you do use a decibel meter like this, you will be able to see, you know, a little bit better results year over year. It's like a decibel or half a decibel here or there. It's just slightly better on the speaker. Now, when it comes to the Face ID, you know, I kind of prefer Samsung's in-display ultrasonic though at this point, because when you're out and about and stuff, it's just easier. Unless you have gloves on, then it's annoying. But if you have a mask on, the Face ID is annoying. So neither of them are a perfect solution, but I think it'd be nice if Apple would integrate a Touch ID scanner onto the side button of the iPhone. The thing that's great about the iPhone 12 Pro Max is that it's a great phone call experience as well, mostly because the speakers are pretty loud. It's a large device and has good enough battery life to make long calls, like a lot of hours on the phone, but at the same time, it has great reception strength. We have Qualcomm modems on board here and 5G performance, which makes this phone have good longevity in terms of, you know, mobile reception and data. So this phone, while it doesn't have 120 Hertz, it's still pretty future-proof, I'd say, in pretty much every other respect. And for some people, this is a better option than getting something like an iPhone 13, the regular 13, because it's a bigger display. It's still 60 Hertz, it's the same brightness, and it's not much more on the used market, and you get a bigger display. So you could either get yourself a 13 or you can get yourself a 12 Pro Max. Let me know if you want to see that comparison down below in the comments. I'm going to wrap it up here. We talked performance, camera, battery. Is it worth buying here? The screen is it's a beautiful design still. The camera's a little small looking compared to the 13 Pro Max, but they're still not bad. They're not as small as the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Overall, this package is about the same as a 13 Pro Max. It's just missing the ProMotion display and the added battery life. Other than that, though, I think the majority of people would still very much enjoy this. My only problem with this phone right now is its high used price. It's still up there. So really, I would be deciding between this and an Apple iPhone 13 if you want a new 13 or this. You'll pay a little more for a 13 Pro and get a smaller display, but you'll get a better 120 Hertz. But if you're looking for a large phone and you don't want to pay for the 13 Pro Max, this is definitely still worth buying. But I would really caution you against getting one of those lower battery capacities. And if you're looking at silver, watch out for some scratches, because you could definitely order something online and get a really, you know, messed up battery and a scratched up phone. So be careful with that stuff when you are looking around. But yeah, I think it's definitely still worth buying right now. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. If you found it helpful, entertaining, informing, click the like button for me, subscribe for more. I'll catch you all in the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.